Hi guys, we out here, so go talk to some residents, tell them we on your block, making sure that we doing what they want with the trees, make sure it's trimmed up good enough for them. All right, let's go. You gonna get everything around here, right?
Yeah, clean it up.
Clean it up, yep. They love it, y'all
Mayor Tiffany Henyard's tree trimming racket is about to be exposed. So how does she get away with doling out hundreds of thousands of dollars for no bid contracts, and how does she benefit? You asked for it, and now you're going to get it on today's corruption edition of Let's Go Political.
We spending roughly between $300,000 and $400,000 every month or every other month on tree trimming. It makes no sense. It's not budgeted anywhere. It's not about beautification. If you're gonna cut the trees, cut the dead trees, trim the trees. But you making this a project of beauty just to be like, they said no. They said no. It's not fair to us.
So what is really going on here? And why do we see meeting after meeting the same discussion coming from the trustees complaining about these no bid contracts? Well, we're going to break it all down step by step and show you, number one, the benefit, the big benefit that is hidden in these tree trimming contracts, which is kickbacks. Number two, we're going to show you the process of how she sets up the deals. Number three, we're going to talk about how she keeps the trustees and the residents thrown off the trail while she doles out these contracts. Number four, we're going to cover the scuttlebutt about signing and approving checks for the warrants on the warrant list, with the culminating event, the $561,000 check. And then number five, we're going to wrap it all up and answer the question, where does all the money go? And what my theory is. So we're going to back all of this up with evidence from prior meetings and show you exactly what is happening.
No one is against getting trees cut. The problem is when we see, and that's why I say, I know you said that we do RFPs. Yes, the engineer department does RFPs, but anyone who's attended these meetings haven't heard of an RFP being presented in a whole entire year and a half. So when we ask, we're asking because it's a concern. When I look at this warrant list, we have $352,105 on tree trimming, just on this warrant list. But yet we have John Pros who come to us and say, well, he's giving you a quote of $2.6 million to cut every tree down in the village. So these are real concerns. Trees have two very important reasons why they are here. One, we need them for oxygen, and two, they assist with the flooding. So when we say, okay, how are we going about cutting the trees? When you drive around the village, I notice we are paying these companies money to trim the trees, and then the following month we're paying them again to cut the tree down. So now we're double dipping. We're paying them twice. So when you as a trustee, you constantly say, where's the tree list? Where's the tree list? But when we ask about the tree list, there's a big stink. And all we're doing is asking questions. That's why we have discussion. If we have a CAL meeting, these RFPs, again, will be presented. We'll all know how much we're paying these vendors, and it won't be a surprise.
So here we have exposed the scam. Now, just as Trustee Belcher said, why would you pay a contractor to trim a tree only to go back to that same tree and cut it down instead of cutting it down in the first place? Well, it's an opportunity to double dip and make money twice on the same tree, because the real motivation is get as many no-bid contracts that you can, pay these contractors to go do the work and skim the money. Now, we heard the term RFP. In fact, we hear that a lot. during the town hall meeting. So what does that stand for? That stands for request for proposal, which leads into the next topic, which is the no bid contract. Now, what you're supposed to do is draw up a proposal. We need so many trees cut at these locations. And then you put out a request for a proposal where contractors will read the request and place bids. The bids are reviewed, and then the lowest bidder from contractors who are prior approved to do work, will be awarded that contract at the specified amount. A no bid contract is when you say, hey, contractor, come over here and cut this tree down. Just go do the work and send us a bill. And that's why we continuously hear the trustees in these meetings talking about these contracts that are given that they know nothing about. So they show up on the warrant list, and then the trustees say, hey, we knew nothing about this, but these folks are asking to be paid. Now, the majority of the time, they are being paid, and we'll talk about that in just a little bit. But we see the difference between the RFP process and a no bid contract. So as Trustee Belcher had mentioned, the amount of contracts that are going out around the RFP process, it's probably in the millions. How are they getting away with this? What's the method of throwing the trustees and the residents off track? Well, let's get into that and show an example of Mayor Tiffany Henyard using a very clever method to throw them off track and to reverse the situation and put the heat on the trustees and turn them into the villain. Darvo process. Go back and watch the prior video, and then you'll clearly see how this is done. Let's cut the video.
So, okay, what is that? So, I wasn't expecting that, but okay. That's just an example of trustee house taking tree service out. And then the very next day, that's why I told y'all, don't play with God. The next day we had a storm and trees fell on people's cars, people's homes. And those same vendors that they took out all came out and cut down trees from your houses, from your cars. And that's what I mean about relationships. People try to destroy it by not paying people. Now you put the village in a hurdle, because now it's like, how do you help the resident that's calling you? Y'all not calling them, y'all calling the mayor. So we want to make sure that we help the people no matter what. And thank you, Johns, for coming out and still cutting, in Murph, K&M Ventures, for cutting down the residents' trees. And this is what I mean when that fake news reporter, Flaco, came and followed us. It was 100-degree weather. And I just want to point it out because I had the police department out, the fire department out, public works was out. Everybody came out to help. And that's something that I do always.
So let's break down what she just did to show you how clever it was. First, she started out by clowning Trustee House, made a complete fool of him in a public meeting on video, discrediting him, completely discrediting him. And then she invoked God. Well, you don't play around with God. Right after she did that, she incited fear, showing the tree falling on one of the residents' vehicles. So what's the inference there? If you don't follow me and trust me, you'll have trees that fall on your house or fall on your car or worse, because you don't want to play with God. Next, accuse and blame. She laid the accusation on the trustees, blaming them for the problem because they're supposedly not paying the contractors. Pretty slick, huh? And then next, of course, we deny. Deny all wrongdoing by calling out the news as fake news. We have that time and time again. And then lastly, she inserts herself as the hero. Now that's pretty crafty. But let's show you another example of how she uses her smoke and mirrors and chaos to keep the trustees thrown off the path. Let's cut to video.
You got board members not voting for certain ordinances because they house out of whack, Trustee Norwood. You got bushes everywhere, outgrown, but you won't vote for the ordinances to make sure we do beautification. But these are the issues we got. And all I can do is point it out to you, because at the end of the day, you're not voting up stuff, you're holding up progress. But you got all these issues, but you need to fix it. And I keep telling people, fix your house, but you come try to fix somebody else's house. But no one's doing it. And all I can keep doing is just showing y'all. Because at the end of the day, y'all, I'm telling y'all now, and I'm gonna keep on saying this, y'all better stop lying on me before I start telling the truth on y'all. Please stop. Because I don't mess with nobody. I come do my job. Only time y'all see me say something is when I have to clear something up. And I shouldn't have to, because I'm too busy doing my job. So I don't have time to come back here and talk about nothing. But that's where it's at. We have to keep clearing it up because people want to tell lies. People want to be famous. There's a lot of jealousy and envy too. People are so upset that I have both seats. As I stated before, if God put me there, what are you so upset about? Work with me. Because there's many people that went on that table before me, but God saw fit to give it to me. So how you mad? I keep saying, don't hate, congratulate. Come join the team, the winning team.
Come join the winning team. More like, come join the crime ring. So let's talk about what she just did there. I had to take notes on that. So while she's doing right, it's the trustees that are holding up the process, okay? It's their fault they're holding up the process. So that's the diversion tactic, so she can keep pushing through the no bid contracts. We don't have time for that. Now, she accuses them of doing the lying. She's the only one telling the truth, so they better stop that lying before she tells the truth. Another classic Darvo reversal. Turn herself into the hero while the trustees are the ones doing the dirty work. So she's too busy doing her job to stop and explain all of this mess, to talk about nothing. Too busy. So we've got to continue to dole out these no bid contracts. We don't have time to talk about requests for proposals and doing things by the books, because the residents need their bushes trimmed and their trees cut down. And then, of course, she does it again. It's God who put her in that position of power. So she appeals to the higher authority. Her appointment comes from on high. Can I get an amen? Yes. Now, it's interesting that while she's sitting here babbling on and on, she accuses the trustees of being the ones who are wasting the money while she's doling out the no-bid contracts. It's another diversionary tactic to shine the light on something else while she's sneaking around doing these dirty things behind the curtain. So it's the trustees, as you heard, that are creating the deficit, not her and these millions of dollars of contracts that don't go through the process. It's their fault for creating the deficit. Now, she babbles on and uses her age-old method of love bombing at the end. I didn't even want to show it because it makes me want to vomit. But she does her little line of, I love y'all and ain't nothing you can do about it. Oh my goodness, I just can't stand it. She even did it in the style that you see in churches where turn to your neighbor and tell them I love y'all and there ain't nothing you can do about it. Just absolutely disgusting. Now let me show you one more method of deflection. This one's actually pretty funny. So in this clip, I want you to pay attention to the reaction of the attorney sitting next to her while she uses this method to keep people thrown off track, and that is to just flat out ignore the issue at hand. Cut the clip.
I'm sorry. You said it was Trustee Stan, but I had one thing to announce.
You had your turn, so we're moving on now. So now,
okay, I make a motion to adjourn the meeting.
You're out of order. It's time for mayor's report. I sat here and I listened to y'all. and now it's the mayor's report. That's so disrespectful. Y'all got to grow up. Just because y'all can't have y'all way, y'all shouldn't act this way. Y'all said all that stuff, didn't mean a word of it, and then you sat here and you did this. That ain't how this go. Y'all do not run the meeting.
You
The
should
mayor
have thought
does.
about that before
So
you
if I'm
had your
asking
administrator. Don't give
if
us the
I'm
information.
asking you, let me finish my statement. So it's mayor's report. So it's a lot of great things that we have here.
So what happened here? After getting blasted by the trustees about the no bid contracts, her method here was just to ignore it and move on to the next item of the agenda. That's pretty good. Just ignore it, sweep it under the rug, and pretend that nothing was even said. We don't answer questions when we're challenged about doing things illegal. Now, did you notice the attorney Delgado sitting there? Did you see him scratch his face? That's because he knew that she was doing wrong after deciding to just push on with the agenda and not even address the elephant in the ear. That's actually Tiffany's way of saying the elephant in the room. Okay, let's get to the piece de resistance and talk about that $561,000 check that was written. But before that was written, there was a lot of discussion that was going on about who signs the checks. Because Tiffany used the excuse that the trustees were not paying for the items on the warrant list after the contractors were completing the work. Now, this has been a big bone of contention, but I did a little bit of research. And so after looking into this, come to find out that you have to have 2 signatures on the checks. So when they removed her from the bank account, she used that as an excuse. So we'll look at a short clip and see her yammering on about getting taken off the bank account. Then I'll come back and tell you what the truth of the situation is and the trick that she was using to keep pushing through the contracts. Cut the video.
Take someone off $1 million bank account, which they did. So you know it's all a setup from the bank to the trustees to the clerk. So you'll see that coming soon. Stay tuned. I keep telling y'all, don't worry about what's going on. Watch how I finish. Mark my words. So they approved it. The board, this is when trustee Tammy Brown flipped on them, and 4 people voted to pay, especially 5-star, all the vendors that was on the list. Now remind y'all, they keep pointing fingers, but they're not telling you facts. Facts is I was not on the bank account, nor was anybody from my administration. The people that had total control was the clerk and Jason House. They did not sign that man's check. They did not sign several other people's check. So then they want to now today place blame on us. We weren't in control of no bank account to pay anybody. Literally, I just got back on the bank account. I sent something out to all the residents in Dolton, and I let you guys know what was going on. And a lot of people was appalled that that happened in their own backyard. So when people want to just get traction off of fake news, false stories, things of that nature, y'all should ask your question, why? What was your antennas 3 years ago? Right when I got in the seat, it been nothing but turmoil because people want to control. They thought I was a young, naive woman that was going to sit here and do what they say. I'm no puppet. But as you saw, trustee Tammy Brown is a puppet. She just said that she don't read. So if she don't read, how does she know how to vote when she come in here?
Sister Tammy Brown is a puppet. A puppet. Okay, that's a new word. All right. So anyway, did you notice how fast she was talking, the nervous talking in that clip? This is probably about the most nervous I have seen her in any clip. And there are several, if you dig, you just have to look for them. So why was she talking so fast and so nervous? Well, it was because A, she was lying, and B, the heat was on. They know that they're on her butt and that she is close to being caught. All right, so let's break down what she just did in this clip. First, she starts off by creating new facts to explain away the situation. All right, she flat out implicated the bank and the trustees and the clerk for what she and her administration were doing. Okay, and then she reiterates that she was not on the bank account, so she can't be the one that was allowing these contracts to be paid for. while in the same breath, she claims that the contractors weren't being paid for the work. Very strange. So then we see her reverse the story, where the trustees were the ones who colluded with 5 Star. Okay? And she was even stating that Jason House did not sign the checks. So if Jason House wasn't signing the checks, how was he colluding with 5 Star and paying them? And then, of course, we'll get to this in the next section. We had that $561,000 check. But all in all, what she did here was deny everything, crack it up to fake news, false stories, pay no attention. It's all fake news. None of it's true. And then use the Darville process. Accuse, reverse the roles, and then become the victim. She's the poor, young, naive woman, the single black woman. We've seen that how many times? All right, so here's what was really going on. The checks were going out to the vendors all the while. Those checks require 2 signatures, none of which are the board of trustees. Now, her appointee, finance director, Tanjanique Miller, can sign checks. And also, Clerk Key has a stamp for checks, which we found out this was being abused without Clerk Key even knowing it. And furthermore, this is getting back to the point that I had brought up about her saying that Jason House was colluding with 5 Star, even though he wasn't signing the checks. Tiffany had already been signing checks on her own. If you dig back, you'll see that in the town hall meetings where they brought up the fact that she was the single signer on many checks, which was the case with the $561,000 check to 5 Star that was signed on April the 8th of 2022. So that was a year before she was even yammering on, making this point that you saw in that last clip. She was already signing checks and had that big $500,000 check, which apparently people are saying that it was cashed at a check cashing business. What in the world? At a check cashing business. Now, the rumor is that it was Currency Exchange Inc., owned by Lon Goodman. And so then the rumor has it that he was caught and he's in trouble, but there's no evidence showing that. I did a lot of research and I'm finding nothing about Lon Goodman being caught and accused of cashing that check. Completely rumored. So I guess we'll just have to wait and see in the future what comes up and if Lon Goodman was connected to that, if he did cash a check, if he was forced to cash it, or if he was working in conjunction with Tiffany Henyard with this little scheme. Okay, so where does all the money go? That's where we get to this. Money laundering. How does the money laundering scheme work? Well, that's when you dole out these contracts to your friends and you tell them you're going to have to give me a kickback, a certain percentage. Like if you're going to do this work and it would normally cost $100,000, well, we'll make it $150,000. Then you send 50 back to me, but don't send it to me directly. Send it to this company that's in Europe or in another state or in China or wherever. Some other LLC, some other entity, and then that entity is going to take it and split it up and send it to several other entities. And then they'll invest that into stocks and bonds. And then somehow those stocks and bonds end up back into another account that the person who is running the scheme has access to. So in money laundering, you're throwing off the trail, you're throwing off the feds from your trail by sending the money through so many hands that you can't connect the dots, the DOTTS. I had to throw that in there. All right, so here is my theory. All right, it's just a theory. I'm not saying it's going to happen. But what I think that we're going to come to find in the coming weeks is that the money has been going through shell companies owned by Keith Freeman. Why? Because we know that after Keith Freeman was indicted for bankruptcy fraud, we come to find out that he has several companies that he owns, and several of those companies are shell companies. So what's a shell company? Well, it's just an empty LLC or corporation that has no employees, no service record. They don't do anything, and it just has a bank account where money goes in and out of. That's a shell company. So here's how they are going to get caught. Even though that they have been destroying records, well, for all of that money that has gone to the contractors that were no bid contracts, none of those were approved by the Board of Trustees. There was no RFP process, so none of the payments were approved. And as we discussed before, we know that you could track down and find out, possibly, if the records weren't completely destroyed, who was signing the checks. Now, even if they don't find that out, you cannot bring this back on the Board of Trustees because the record shows that they did not approve those transactions. And what does that leave us to? That leads us to Mayor Tiffany Henyard and her administration. They're the only ones left to blame for all that money going out that was not approved by the Board of Trustees. Now, I want to ask you the question. Post it in the comments, your answer. Who do you think is going to be left holding the bag and left to be the sole target, the blame for possible money laundering? And do you think that we are going to find out from the investigation that Keith Freeman's shell companies were used to launder this money? I want to know right now. Or do you think it's the trustees that were doing the wrong all along and that Tiffany is completely honest and her hands are clean and nothing nefarious was going on? Let me know. Let me know. I'll be curious to see what you think. But I thank you for watching this deep dive. If you made it to the end, you are the real OG. All right? So that about wraps it up. And I would absolutely love it if you would like, comment, and subscribe to the Go Political channel. Tell a friend, pass the word, put a tweet out on X, and share this video. I've got so much more to come. We're going to be talking about my theory about the fact that I think Lori Lightfoot is to be credited for all of the recent action that we have seen on the part of the FBI. Stay tuned for that. That's all I've got for now. This is Carlton, and I am out.
In Dolton blocks, we flex our mic. We cut trees and snatch cash, hold it tight. Then we vanish like a ghost in the night to our secret stash, out of sight. Hey, creeping on the come up, stealthy. Money flow thick, yeah, healthy. Keep to the shadows, real deadly. Deep tone echo, voice heavy. Life in the grind, it's a fast dash. We cut trees and snatch cash.